Welcome to the Firefly Tutors TV podcast, where real teachers from all over the country discuss real solutions for parents and educators alike. Here's your host, Marissa Johnston.
Hello and welcome to The Buzz, brought to you by Firefly Tutors TV, where we talk to administrators, educators, and parents all across the country about current topics affecting school children today. Welcome to the podcast, Melissa Loble. Melissa has spent 20 years in the educational technology world, working for a number of technology suppliers and educational institutions, as well as teaching leadership courses on managing technology for educational change. Melissa earned her M.A. in Educational Policy from Teachers College, Columbia University, and an M.B.A. from the Columbia Business School. Today, we are discussing how ChatGPT is changing the landscape for high school and college students. Thank you so much for joining us, Melissa.
It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much, Marissa.
What are some practical tips or best practices for students to make the most out of their interactions with ChatGPT? How can they ensure they're using the tool in a productive and responsible manner? I know we kind of talked about the don'ts, like don't tell it to talk like a pirate or else all your stuff will come out saying "R." But what can they do that will benefit them in the long run?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things I would tell students, and I've worked with students with some of this, question everything. So be thoughtful about your prompt and ask your question a couple different ways. Don't just ask the question and take the first output. Ask it like 2 or 3 different ways and then rationalize the output from each of those answers, because that can get you to the true facts. And if something smells wrong, it's probably wrong. So just know that. Question it. Use it as a foundation, but don't use it as your final product is my recommendation. The second thing is investigate these productivity. Like ask it to unpack steps or to create a timeline to do something or to build your schedule, or ask it to do things that don't feel like learning necessarily, but that give you the space to spend more time on learning. And then the final thing I would tell students is be upfront with your teachers how you're using it. So you're going to see progressive teachers definitely say, I want you to go do this assignment and I want you to use ChatGPT and I want you to tell me how you're using it. Yeah. Other teachers will be okay with you using these tools, but be upfront with them. When you, especially if your teacher asks you to reflect on your work, be honest about that, because that will then help coach you to use it in better ways, or to highlight where, like, hey, you said you use ChatGPT and this paragraph, this is a little off and this is why. So next time you go use it, you should think about that. So be upfront about it and be transparent about it. So that's my collection of suggestions for students. For teachers, I think, find ways that you see it as a skill that your students need to use, and be open and upfront about that with students, and transparent. Help them understand, teach them those curation skills, help them be able to make good decisions about what's right and what's wrong that they might get back. And then definitely keep your eye out. There is an opportunity for some of these tools to have a little bit of a dark side. I mentioned that before, either hallucination or, sometimes they can, if the wrong questions are asked, they can be kind of negative or make somebody not feel as smart or empowered as they really are. So just look for those. Keep an eye out for those signals. Watch the whole child, watch the emotions of the child, just so that you can pick up on that and course correct that early on in the process. So those would be some of my student teacher. I think in general, we need to be less worried about cheating and academic integrity as we've known it in the past, and challenge ourselves to reframe what we see as academic integrity in a way that when you violate academic integrity, you're hurting other people or you're hurting your own journey for learning, but it's not necessarily you're going and finding the answer. So I hope that just society in general can start to reframe that a little bit and be concerned about it, but be concerned about it in a way that, as we were talking about, affects you as a citizen, not necessarily in the traditional, you must memorize this, and if you don't have it memorized, you don't pass kind of way. Right.
I, especially with memorization, I think back to 5th grade when I had to memorize the states in the correct spots for the United States of America. Couldn't do it. Could not do it. Couldn't pass to save my life, unfortunately. It just wasn't in my wheelhouse. And yet ChatGPT probably could have put it in a way that was more meaningful to me than the way it was being taught to my, however many other classmates. Because
Yep.
were some successful? Yeah. Was everyone successful? No, I was not alone, and it one takeaway I'm getting from our conversation here is that ChatGPT will make it to where everyone has a better chance of succeeding.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm so on board for that.
I am too. And that is such a great way to summarize that. It creates equity and inclusivity that we just may not have in some of our traditional structures. And having everyone succeed means we all win because our communities succeed.
Yes, absolutely. And you never know who is sitting in the back of the classroom, staying quiet, that is, has the capacity to one day cure cancer, to,
That's right.
solve the world's problems, to end all wars. They might be right there, but not receiving what they need in the way they need it.
Yeah, that just gave me chills. Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So are there any specific features or functionalities of ChatGPT that are particularly beneficial for high school and college students? How can they leverage these features to their advantage? So I know we've kind of talked broadly about its features and how, students can interact with it and tailor it and everything. But is there any specific aspect of it that really benefits those high school and college students, like even with admissions and stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, two things. You can have it, as I mentioned before, have it give you specific answers to questions that may not be really Google searchable. So if you want to get at, like you talked about admissions, so you're thinking about what colleges you might want to go to or community colleges or whatever your next step might be, you can ask it complex questions like, I'm interested in photography, and I also want to be I want to be in a state near water. And it can give you not just ad-based searches, it's going to give you information on here are the things or the schools or the options. It's going to collect that information. It's going to tailor it to who you are and your questions that you ask to then build on and develop whatever, decision making around that you want. So I think there's this, again, the way you can ask it questions and the way it can get at information, it can align pieces of information and connect the dots as opposed to give you just a data dump. So use it, ask it questions. That's the number one thing I would tell every student. Try it. And I guarantee you probably a fair amount of students are already trying it. Don't start with just trying to get answers for your tests. Don't start there, because that's not giving you the skill set that you need later, right? Don't go look up, I'm in trigonometry and I'm on this test and I have this teacher. What are the answers for it? And have it, there are tools out there that can find those answers. But that's not where to start. Start with asking it questions that require it to make connections for you. And then you can start to learn from those connections. And then the second thing is back on that. I would tell every student, try something that you don't feel like you have the skills for using ChatGPT. So for example, I build online courses and I'm terrible at HTML. I started to use I am terrible at HTML and I shouldn't be. So I use like the typical editors and my courses look okay. They're kind of plain, but they get the point across. So I started to use ChatGPT with HTML. And I would have never tried. I would have never picked up an HTML book. I would have never gone to like LinkedIn Learning and taken an HTML class. Just not something I would take the time to do. I've started to use it to build these really pretty courses, and I'm learning HTML on the line. And I'm like, oh, I like design. I never thought I liked design. I thought I was bad at design. So I would tell every student to do that too. Go try coding. Go try graphic design. Go try writing if you hate writing. Go, have it build a speech, and then practice those speeches. Try something that you don't think you're good at or you don't think you like in ChatGPT. Have it build something for you and see if that inspires you to go down a potential different discipline road. So those would be the two things: build something and ask it questions where it needs to build context. Do that right away.
Okay.
And then go look for the answers and do those other
Yeah.
things. But that would be
Double
my
check it.
recommendations. Yeah, that would be my recommendation for every high school and college student, looking for ways to use it. And then my third one would be back on the productivity. Start to have it build schedules. We're going to be, my prediction is 15 years, 10 years from now, so much of our day-to-day work is going to be managed by artificial intelligence, and not in a bad way, in a good way. Like, I'm not going to have to worry about calendar conflicts anymore. It's just going to tell me I've got conflicts. I'm going to get, there's going to be an email thread where 10 people wrote emails, and I'm just going to get a summary and a draft of a response email based on the questions asked of me in those 10 emails. Like, that's going to happen. It's coming. Yeah. It's already here in some ways. So start to embrace that as students as well, so that you're ready 10 years from now to use those kinds of tools, and not waste your time doing tasks that no longer require human intervention.
That's great. And when Alexa came out, that was already me being like, I have my own personal assistant, because
Totally.
I would use her for everything. Alexa, do this. Alexa, remind me. Alexa, whatever. So it sounds like that's definitely the direction we're headed in ChatGPT, excuse me. But in a way, like you mentioned earlier, without the targeted ads, without, one thing about Alexa, she started to get to the point that she said, you were looking at these things on Amazon. Would you like me to add it to your cart? And I'm so grateful I don't have small children around who would go, let's buy it. No, I don't want random things showing up on my doorstep that Alexa bought for me, So that's exciting about ChatGPT too. And from what you were mentioning earlier, it sounds like you really have to, in asking it those kind of questions that you have, you're helping it build your personality so that it can support you best. So it's learning your learning style. It's learning your personality, your likes, your dislikes, your needs, your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, it very much is. That's a really good way to put that. And it's going to continue to evolve to do that more and more. And then individual companies are going to embed it and give you all those recommendations. But that's out at the individual. That's you're walking into it, right? We're not.
Right.
The famous movie Minority Report, people talk about, are we walking in a Minority Report where I'm going to walk everywhere and everything's going to be targeted at me? Well, you need a place that you can go where you're crafting. You're not having everybody else craft for you what kinds of answers or help or direction that you need. And so that's another way to be thinking about this, and a real advantage to this, especially as those tools, there are open source tools out there that do this. And the more of those that we have, the more we can rationalize that against the recommendation world, which also has a lot of value, but it's a different kind of value that it's bringing.
Yes, especially when you go to look up one thing one time, and Facebook and Google and Amazon and all of the other social media sites think that you are so determined to buy a boat. Yes. Guys, I was looking it up for a reference question. I don't actually want a boat, that can be infuriating. And it's like you get stuck in this algorithm. So the fact that ChatGPT doesn't rely on targeted ads, doesn't suggest, corporate things to you is already such a relief.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, that is awesome to hear. So as an AI language model, ChatGPT does have its limitations still. What are some areas where students should be cautious and seek additional human support or resources rather than relying solely on AI assistance? And I know we've talked a lot about this throughout our discussion, but what are some direct recommendations that you would give to students, like right here, right now, if you're looking them in the face? Don't do this or do this or whatever. What would you tell them?
Yeah. Use it for good, not to have fun or play pranks on other people.
Ooh,
because
I like
when you
that.
go, it's like, it could be really tempting. Back to I'll be lighthearted and say talk like a pirate, but you can ask it to do bad things or mean things. Don't do that, because it's also teaching it to pick up on that. You want to you want to teach these models to produce good information, not to be bad actors.
So
if
there
you
is a
think
level of user responsibility then, and I'm
yes.
sorry to cut you off, but that's what I'm taking from what you're just saying right now is there is user responsibility and you need to use it with caution still.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put that. There is user responsibility. Use it for good, not bad. And the other piece is be careful what you feed it, because you do feed it personal information. It now has that personal information that's part of its broader model. So, sharing it, your social security number and your birthday and your home address and all of that that's accidentally on a doc that you've uploaded to it because you want to have it do some summary. Be aware of your own personal information and what you're sharing so that it doesn't end up in a larger universe of information. And so that's also a personal accountability in this, or really understanding your user role in how you leverage these tools. And there are some corporations out there that are talking about, be careful you're not submitting proprietary information. So I would say the same for students, right? If you've got original work, be careful where you submit that original work so that you're not, potentially putting at risk somebody else using some of that work. So just no privacy, use it for good, have it help you, not be you, is probably how I would describe it best.
So if I were to upload certain information to it, am I helping other people's ChatGPT too?
You are.
Oh.
So if you ask certain prompts or you upload, so for example, in the corporate space, you'll see people, I've got these 6 different docs and I want you to write like a summary of these docs. Well, those docs go out there. They don't become public, but they are behind the scenes teaching the model. So the information in those documents are helping to teach these models. So you are helping it. It's not that information is suddenly public, depending on how you use it. But you do want to be, it's a good thing. We're all teaching these models. It's the world of the internet. If it's out on the internet anyway, it's already taught it, that model, but you're teaching it. It's a good thing. But then also realize what you're sharing with it so that you're careful with that, again, especially around personal information or information that's just so part of who you are as a human. It doesn't need that to teach the model.
Right. Your inner, thoughts and monologue and stuff.
Exactly. You don't need your journal.
Stay yours.
Yep. Keep your journal as your journal.
Yes. Yeah. And it sounds like a good rule of thumb is if you wouldn't plaster that information on a billboard, don't send it to ChatGPT.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Oh, so what should parents know about AI programs like ChatGPT and how it relates to their child's education? What tidbits do you have for parents who are still kind of like, I don't know about this program here?
Yeah. I think parents, teachers are scared. And so just know that. And there's going to be questions. And I think there are going to be more questions around academic integrity than have been in the past, right? So just be prepared for that. Like if a teacher comes to you and says, hey, I think your kid used ChatGPT, that might be okay. Like just, and so listen to things like this. Familiarize yourself with what ChatGPT is. Familiar yourself with what these tools are. Go try them yourself. That is the biggest thing I tell parents. Just use them, experiment with them. You might already be doing it in the workplace. Do it as your child, so that you can be exposed to that and you can understand what they're doing. And if I wouldn't recommend blocking. Some parents are like, oh, I'm going to block certain sites or things like that. That's up to parent choice, but consider how, vet the tools before you block them would be my suggestion, because there are good tools out there that are really useful versions of ChatGPT or other things. And then there might be some tools you may want to block depending on what they're doing or the risk. And then finally, and I think I'm sure you've said this, I've listened to a couple of your sessions, just know what your kids are doing. That's probably the most important thing, because then you can observe them and watch how they behave and react to those things. You can pick up, oh gosh, is my child suddenly interested in programming? Whoa, where'd that come from, right? You can pick up those things. You can see that in who they are and try to light those things up if it's something different. And then you can also see if there's somehow dark parts that are coming out where, they're stressed or they're scared or they're afraid of being accused of cheating or things like that. know these tools so that you can intervene in those situations and be the right support structure for your kids.
With that thought, do you think there's like an age limit to using ChatGPT? I know our main focus here has been high school and college level students, but is this something that kids, younger than that should be using?
Yeah, I think, I don't think there's an age limit, but I think using the right interfaces of these tools is what's going to be key. And we see that in elementary education anyway already around technology. The schools and parents should vet what tools you're using. So some of them are super safe. Some of them are awesome. Like it's teaching kids, how to read faster and how to draw and do things at a very young age that are really exciting. But pick and choose your tools. And it's not that there are, people are out there deliberately trying to be bad actors, but some tools are just so quickly brought to market that there may be downsides that just aren't realized yet. So just be particular. And I know school districts around the country are really looking at this too in general, like what technologies are we bringing into the classroom and where is it most valuable and why? So do I think there's there's an age limit? No, but I think we need to be careful. We also need to be careful about some basic privacy things. So you want to make sure the student, especially a young child, isn't giving up any of their identity. They shouldn't need an email address to use it. Some of those basic fundamental approaches to using technology should apply to AI as well. But I know kids using this in first and second grade. Teachers are being really deliberate about how they create the activities that they're using it in, and they're having a great time. A lot of it's around creation, image creation, that kind of stuff, getting creative. It's cool to see.
That's awesome. And, it makes me think of how involved people do need to stay, for sure.
Yeah.
But also how important it is to begin those courses early on of teaching children the online literacy and, how to be safe, how to ask properly, and just fitting that into technology classes from an early age of how to best utilize ChatGPT and letting them know the potential it has if they were to kind of take it down the wrong path, feeding it dark things or pranks or making it be snarky towards you, just the negatives that can come about it. I feel like education is the best way to prepare someone, and educating them of not only the benefits, but the negatives that can come from it too is just so crucial.
Yes, so well said. And this just fits right into that collection of tools and those collection of practices and balance too. Balancing how much technology your kids are using with, how much they're playing, and all of those pieces play into this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And not every lesson has to be done on a computer. There is so much to learn by just getting outside too. So I think you're absolutely right. Balance is key. And, just enriching a child's education by all means possible.
Absolutely. And this just gives you another dimension to do that.
Melissa, is there anything you'd like to share so that our listeners can learn more about your resources you provided today?
Oh, thank you for asking. We're at Instructure and we release Canvas and we have other technologies. We're going to continue to publish information as we experiment with it, just good, useful information for anybody to go access. So if you go to community.canvas.com, you'll be able to get that information. Just keep an eye out there and we'll keep presenting tips, tricks, what we learn, and most importantly, we'll be surfacing up what we hear from parents, students, and teachers all over the world about how they're using these technologies. So go check it out, contribute back. I'll also offer, and I know this is crazy, but I'm going to throw it out there. I would love to know how you're using ChatGPT and other tools as well. So don't hesitate to hit me up at melissa@instructure.com. Tell me your stories. Let's bring these together.
Definitely. Melissa, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a lovely conversation and so inspiring.
Definitely. If you enjoyed our discussion today, please like Firefly Tutors on all your social media hubs like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Find us on Pinterest, where we pin all of our favorite resources for parents and tutors. At Firefly Tutors, we believe every student deserves the opportunity to develop to their highest potential. See you next time on The Buzz.